The child's shoe found in an abandoned SS locker was still warm to the touch, even after 76 years. Security personnel at the old factory froze in place as the rusted metal door swung open, revealing a single small leather boot with a name tag still attached, radiating heat like it had just been removed from a living child's foot. The discovery sent immediate shockwaves through the industrial complex that had been scheduled for demolition the following morning. Nobody could explain how the shoe maintained body temperature, nor why the factory's security system captured the distinct sound of a child's laughter echoing from within the sealed room moments before the door was opened. Dr. Elias Mercer, head of the Historical Preservation Committee assigned to oversee the final audit of the abandoned Reichsbahn factory complex in eastern Germany, stood motionless before the open locker. His 30 years of experience in World War II artifacts and recovery operations had never prepared him for anything like this. The 63-year-old historian's hands trembled as he cautiously reached toward the small leather boot. "It's impossible," he whispered to his assistant, Rebecca Krauss. "This shouldn't be warm. The temperature reading shows 42 degrees Celsius, almost exactly human body temperature." Rebecca backed away slowly, her clipboard clattering to the ground. "The building's been abandoned since 1946, she stammered. "That locker hasn't been opened since the Soviet occupation." The security team exchanged nervous glances, nobody willing to approach the anomalous object that defied all logical explanation. The factory's decommissioning audit had been proceeding routinely until this moment, cataloging machinery, checking for environmental hazards, and documenting any historical items before the scheduled demolition. Now, everything had changed. When Dr. Mercer finally mustered the courage to lift the small shoe, something even more disturbing happened. Blood, fresh, warm blood, began to drip from the heel of the boot, forming a small crimson puddle on the concrete floor. The security chief, Carl Weber, immediately called for an evacuation of the room, his military training kicking in despite the impossible nature of what they were witnessing. "Nobody touches anything else," he ordered, his voice cracking with tension. "This is now a potential crime scene." But what crime could this possibly be? The factory had been abandoned for over 7 decades. The SS locker should have contained nothing but dust and forgotten paperwork. Instead, they found themselves facing something that defied rational explanation: a child's shoe that somehow retained the warmth and blood of its long-dead owner. Dr. Mercer insisted on properly documenting the discovery before authorities arrived, carefully photographing the locker and its impossible contents. The name tag attached to the boot sent another chill through the already frozen room. Written in faded but still legible ink was a child's name and identification number: Elias Mercer, 47832, the exact same name as the historian who discovered it. Dr. Mercer's face drained of all color as he stared at his own name on the decades-old shoe. "This is impossible," he repeated, his voice barely audible. "This cannot be happening." Rebecca checked the historian's credentials to confirm what they already knew. There was no mistake. The child's shoe belonged to someone with the exact same name as the man who discovered it. Within hours, the factory had been sealed off by both local police and federal authorities. News of the discovery spread quickly through government channels, though a media blackout was immediately implemented. Dr. Mercer was placed in a secure room for questioning, his protests growing increasingly desperate as authorities treated him as both witness and suspect in whatever inexplicable event they were investigating. The blood from the shoe was rushed to a laboratory for DNA analysis, while the factory's forgotten archives were hurriedly searched for any record of children on the premises during the war. The factory's history proved even darker than initially believed. Originally constructed in 1938 as a Reichsbahn railway components facility, investigators discovered that by 1943, a special wing had been converted for what documents euphemistically called special material processing, a term historians recognized as Nazi code for human experimentation. The records, incomplete and partially destroyed during the Soviet occupation, hinted at something called Project Janus, involving twin children from the nearby concentration camps. Dr. Mercer, still detained and increasingly agitated, revealed during questioning that he had been adopted as a young child after the war. His birth records had been destroyed, and he had no knowledge of his biological parents or potential siblings. The coincidence of the name was disturbing enough, but what happened next defied all rational explanation. The DNA results from the blood showed a perfect match to Dr. Mercer himself. Not a relative, not an ancestor, but his own exact genetic profile. That's scientifically impossible, insisted Dr. Carla Voigt, the forensic specialist called in to verify the findings. Blood cells would have completely degraded after 76 years. Even if they hadn't, the genetic markers couldn't possibly be identical unless— She stopped herself, unwilling to complete the thought that defied all scientific understanding. Unless the blood was somehow Mercer's own, deposited recently, or through some impossible temporal anomaly. Security footage from the sealed factory room revealed something even more disturbing. During the night, while guards were stationed outside, cameras captured the shoe moving slightly on the evidence table where it had been placed. More alarming, at exactly 3:17 in the morning, a small handprint appeared in the dust next to the shoe, a child's handprint that materialized while the room was completely empty and locked. The night security supervisor who first reviewed the footage was found unconscious at his station, suffering what doctors later diagnosed as an acute stress response. The factory board of directors, hastily assembled for an emergency meeting about the discovery, demanded immediate action. The planned demolition was indefinitely postponed as historians, scientists, and government officials converged on the site. What had begun as a routine historical preservation audit had transformed into something that threatened to upend understanding of physics, history, and the nature of reality itself. The board members, mostly elderly men with connections to the property's post-war development, appeared visibly shaken as they reviewed the preliminary findings. 1 week into the investigation, another shocking development occurred. A second locker, previously overlooked and partially concealed behind fallen ceiling debris, was discovered in the same room. This one contained a small jacket with the same identification tag, but a different name: Rebecca Krause, 47833. Dr. Mercer's assistant collapsed upon seeing her own name on the decades-old garment, suffering a seizure that required immediate medical intervention. Like the shoe, the jacket was unnaturally warm to the touch, and similarly began to seep fresh blood when handled by investigators. Historical researchers working around the clock uncovered fragmentary records suggesting Project Janus had involved attempts to duplicate biological specimens across temporal boundaries. The Nazi pseudo-scientific terminology was difficult to decipher, but references to quantum entanglement of twin subjects and bidirectional temporal displacement appeared frequently in the partially burned documents recovered from a hidden compartment beneath the factory floor. Whatever experiments had taken place there clearly involved children, twins, and concepts that seemed more like science fiction than World War II-era science. Dr. Mercer, finally released from questioning but still under close observation, became obsessed with understanding what had happened in the factory. His research led him to a disturbing theory that he himself might be connected to experiments performed there, perhaps even a product of them. "My earliest childhood memories only began around age 5, he confided to the lead investigator. Before that, there's nothing but darkness and cold. I've always attributed it to the trauma of the war, but now—" His voice trailed off, unable to articulate the impossible implications. Rebecca Krause's medical evaluations revealed something equally disturbing. Born in 1989, long after the war, she nevertheless showed unusual physiological anomalies, specifically trace evidence of chemicals that hadn't been manufactured since the 1940s in her bone tissue. Doctors were at a loss to explain how compounds banned for over 70 years could be present in the body of someone born decades after their discontinuation. When she finally regained consciousness, her first words sent chills through the medical staff. "He's still there. The boy is still waiting in the dark." The third discovery broke the last threads of rational explanation. A hidden room, accessed through a false wall revealed by ground-penetrating radar, contained two small metal beds bolted to the floor. The beds, sized for children, were equipped with restraints and connected to machinery that modern scientists couldn't fully identify. Most disturbing were the fresh indentations on the thin mattresses, child-sized depressions that appeared to have been made recently, despite the room being sealed for over 7 decades. Air quality tests in the hidden room revealed another impossibility. While the oxygen content matched the rest of the factory, carbon dioxide levels were elevated in patterns consistent with recent human respiration. Someone, or something, has been breathing in this sealed room, the environmental specialist reported, her voice shaking. And based on the distribution pattern, they're approximately the height of a 10-year-old child. The temperature in the room also fluctuated wildly, dropping to near freezing when investigators were present, then rising to precisely 37 degrees Celsius when the room was empty. Dr. Mercer, against all security protocols and direct orders, broke into the facility after hours to investigate the hidden room himself. Security footage showed him entering the building at 2:46 in the morning, but no cameras captured him actually reaching the sealed area. At precisely 3:17, the exact same time as the previous anomaly, all electronic equipment in the factory temporarily failed. When systems came back online 11 minutes later, Dr. Mercer was nowhere to be found. His abandoned flashlight, still turned on, lay in the middle of the hidden room, slowly rolling back and forth as if recently dropped. A massive search operation found no trace of the missing historian. Police dogs brought to track his scent refused to enter the hidden room, whimpering and backing away despite their handlers' commands. One particularly well-trained German shepherd became so distressed that it attacked its own handler when forcibly dragged toward the doorway, an action completely out of character for the animal. Something about the space repelled the dogs on a primal level that overrode all their training and obedience. 3 days after Dr. Mercer's disappearance, the children's clothing items, the shoe and jacket, simultaneously vanished from the secure evidence room where they were being kept. Security cameras showed no unauthorized entry, yet the sealed container had been opened from the inside, its heavy lid somehow pushed upward and aside. In their place was a yellowed photograph that none of the investigators had ever seen before, showing 2 children standing in front of the factory. When digitally enhanced, the faces became clear. They were unmistakably juvenile versions of Dr. Mercer and Rebecca Krauss, wearing the exact clothing items that had been discovered in the lockers. Rebecca Krauss, still hospitalized but increasingly lucid, began to speak of memories that couldn't possibly be hers. She described in perfect detail the layout of the factory as it had been in 1943, including areas that had been destroyed before her birth. More disturbing, she recounted specific experiments conducted there, naming Nazi doctors whose identities had only been discovered in the most recently uncovered documents. They tried to send us forward, she told investigators, but something went wrong. We got separated across time instead. The factory board of directors called an emergency meeting to decide the facility's fate. The chairman, 89-year-old Heinrich Foller, suffered a massive heart attack when the lights flickered during the meeting and 2 small wet footprints appeared on the boardroom table. Medical responders were unable to revive him, but reported something inexplicable. His body temperature dropped from normal to near freezing in less than 2 minutes, a rate of cooling that should have been physically impossible. Examination of Fuller's personal effects revealed another shocking connection. Among his papers was a faded identity card showing he had been a junior administrative assistant at the factory during the war years. His personal journal, written in a cryptic shorthand that took specialists days to decode, contained references to the twin subjects and the successful temporal displacement. Most damning was a single line dated April 1945. The American and Russian forces approach. We have sent the children forward to safety. May they find what we have prepared for them. The remaining board members, confronted with Wohler's apparent connection to the Nazi experiments, unanimously voted to demolish the factory immediately. Historical preservation be damned. However, 3 separate demolition teams refused to enter the building after experiencing what they described as a child's hand grabbing their ankles or tugging on their clothing. The demolition company ultimately broke contract, forfeiting a substantial payment rather than continue work at the site. Rebecca Krauss, against medical advice, discharged herself from the hospital and returned to the factory. Security personnel reported seeing her enter the main building at 2:31 in the morning, but like Dr. Mercer, she was never seen reaching the hidden room. At exactly 3:17, the now familiar power fluctuation occurred throughout the facility. When systems reset, infrared cameras captured a brief, impossible image, what appeared to be 2 small children holding hands with 2 adults, all 4 figures standing in the hidden room for approximately 4 seconds before fading from view. Government authorities, increasingly desperate to contain the situation, ordered the factory sealed with reinforced concrete. The official explanation given to the public cited extreme environmental contamination and structural instability. Teams worked around the clock to entomb the building, focusing particularly on sealing the section containing the hidden room. The operation was nearly complete when workers reported hearing children's laughter echoing from within the partially sealed structure. 2 distinct voices, one male and one female, giggling as if sharing a private joke. The final and perhaps most disturbing discovery came during the cataloging of Dr. Mercer's personal effects from his hotel room. His laptop contained research notes he'd been compiling about the factory, including a family tree he'd been constructing to find any blood relatives who might still be alive. The document showed he had been methodically testing his DNA against historical databases. His final entry, made the night before his disappearance, contained a single line: DNA confirmation complete. Board Chairman Heinrich Wohler was my biological grandfather. 1 year after these events, the concrete-sealed factory remains under 24-hour surveillance. Motion sensors occasionally trigger without explanation, always at precisely 3:17, morning or evening. Sound recorders pick up faint conversations that audio specialists have been unable to fully clarify, though certain phrases have been distinguished, including references to completing the circle and finally going home together. Most disturbing are the small handprints that periodically appear on the inside of the sealed observation windows, 2 distinct sizes, appearing in fresh condensation that should not be possible within the entombed structure. The current whereabouts of Dr. Elias Mercer and Rebecca Krauss remain unknown. Their legal status is classified as missing, presumed deceased, though no bodies have ever been recovered. Their personal effects remain in government storage, awaiting claimed by next of kin, of which neither had any on record. The blood samples taken from both the shoe and jacket remain in a secure laboratory facility, where technicians report the inexplicable fact that both samples still register as fresh, showing no signs of degradation despite the passage of time. The factory's location has been removed from public maps, and the surrounding area designated as a restricted zone under environmental protection laws. Local residents report occasional strange phenomena, particularly the sound of children laughing or running on nights when the moon is full. Several families have moved away after their own children began speaking of the twins who can walk through walls, or drawing pictures of the people stuck between today and yesterday in the abandoned factory. Perhaps most chilling are the identical nightmares reported by sensitive individuals who venture too close to the sealed facility. Dreams of 2 children and 2 adults trapped in an endlessly repeating loop, trying desperately to synchronize across fractured time to finally escape together. Those who experience these dreams invariably report waking at exactly 3:17 in the morning, with the sensation of small, cold hands gently touching their faces in the darkness. What truly happened at the Reichsbahn factory? Was Project Janus an actual attempt to manipulate time itself, using the unique biological properties of twin children as quantum anchors? Did something go catastrophically wrong, splitting the subjects across decades? Or is there a more rational explanation for the impossible events that unfolded during what should have been a routine historical audit? The answers may lie forever entombed in concrete, or perhaps they exist in a place beyond our conventional understanding of time and reality. Have you ever found an object that seemed impossibly out of place or time? Do you believe that the Nazi regime's scientific experiments may have ventured into areas we still don't fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to our channel for more explorations of history's darkest and most inexplicable mysteries. The past may not be as firmly behind us as we'd like to believe, and sometimes what's been buried doesn't always stay that way.